Good evening. I'm Greer McGearey, President of Seahorse Victoria, and with me tonight is Elisabeth Lane. Welcome, Elisabeth.
Thank you, Greer.
One of the things that we're celebrating is, one, the 45th anniversary of Seahorse Victoria having its first meeting in September of 1975. But the other significant anniversary in September is the 20th anniversary of the passing of the Equal Opportunity, Gender Identity and Sexual Orientation Bill in Victoria. And that's sort of the basis, what I'd like to discuss tonight. That is, our perceived perception of law and dogma, how it's impacted on our early life and those around us in wanting to come to terms with our identity. And might start with you. What are your earliest recollections of where you were at your journey in life?
Well, if you go back 20 years ago, I was still totally in the closet. I really hadn't even discovered, I thought still that I was the only person on the planet like this. And it was only, I think about early 2000s, I was living in Brisbane and I discovered there was a Seahorse Queensland. Even then it took me from 2002 to 2004 before I actually turned up there. And it was very much one of, that was the most gratifying and terrifying night of my entire life. And even then, to go in public, it was this huge, oh my God, I couldn't do that. When that really, that was then. But over time, as not just the laws, but society has changed and we are seen more as human beings, it's become easier and easier to do things.
That early part of your life there, as you're saying, connecting with Queensland Seahorse in about 20 years ago. Prior to that, though, more or less when you were young and the first time that you thought about there's something different about me compared to the others around me, and were you aware of any of the prevailing dogma or laws that might have made you cautious about talking to anyone about how you felt?
Within my family, they're quite conservative, so that in itself is one you wouldn't say. With regards to the laws, I knew, I think cross-dressing was illegal back in the 70s and 80s, or back definitely in the 70s, and so it's one that you wouldn't, I was too scared to say it to anyone, lest I'd be ridiculed within society itself. The main thing for me was I would literally, I told no one, and I only actually told my partner at the time in 99 that I cross-dressed even. And that was, again, a very scary moment.
Having previous conversations over the time that I've been in Seahorse about, my earliest memories go back to being a toddler and getting caught rummaging through Mum's trousseau box and trying on one of the nighties, and having at that point been the third of three brothers and eventually the middle of five brothers. But I can remember Mum picking me up and whisking me out to Dad's work area at the back of the house. And they had good chuckles and the like about it, but I really had a strong sense that little boys aren't supposed to do this. And so sort of cool, probably from that time, sort of kept it very secret in the background. That was my earliest memories of, something's just not quite we're supposed to do.
Well, my earliest memory would have been primary school, wondering what it would be like to be with the girls or hanging out with the girls, but there was a difference. And if you do it for too long, you will get teased for it. And then I also remember the boys wanted me to hang out with, I was allowed to hang out with the boys, but then it was like, I really did not want to do that. I was much more careful, I got actually with regards to actually trying something on, because I was in a family of five, I had four siblings plus two parents. So free time to be alone to do it was almost non-existent. So I was actually probably closer to about 15, 16, the first time I was in the house on my own, I actually got a chance to try on some of my sister's clothes. And there was very much a very strong sense of guilt that went with that because you knew it was wrong. that's how I was brought up back then.
As a teenager, because I was very strong and fit and healthy, and I loved my athletics, but I used to help out at the local swimming pool as a 16, 17-year-old, and you dive in the water and get out and wrap the towel around yourself. But I used to carefully fold the towel in half and wrap it around my waist so it looked like a mini skirt. So, because that was the fashion of the time, and that was the closest I could come to getting dressed, because I had no sisters, and I was towering over Mum because she was only 5'3", and here at 16 I was 6 foot tall, so sort of couldn't even try on any clothes. It was sort of frustrating in that sense. But likewise, I sort of there was always in the background this sense of society didn't like it, both legally and through dogma, and it just sort of kept a lid on wanting to express or talk to anyone about how I felt. Feeling guilty is one of those things that sort of tends to follow you through into adult life. So do you find that, as you went into adult life, that was still hanging around you significantly?
The desire to dress was always there. I hid it for a few years. When I took up martial arts, it kind of put it away, and I basically did everything every day was do some more martial arts. That kept it at bay for 8 years, but then it came back stronger. Then I took up fencing. I mean, these are relatively masculine pursuits. Did that for 5 years, and again, this time it came back even stronger still. It's not something that's going to go away. You can put it away for a little while, but it will always come back. And when it came back, each time it was in magnitude harder and more intense. And after the fencing, now we're talking about 2000, 2001, this is when I was like, this is really becoming difficult to manage. And that was when, I think it was 2002, I saw Seahorse, and then I saw it on the web, Seahorse, and then it took me 2 years to get the courage to actually turn up there. And that was just the most amazing time for me, when I actually found I was not alone, to be in a room all the same as me, and that you weren't different. You were a normal human being. You're part of the diversity that is life.
I got married early, and we had our first child very early in our adult life, and soon followed by 2 more, and then a bit of a gap to another 2. But as, like you were sort of saying about each time that you really thought about it, or the feeling got stronger and more intense. And I think, like a lot of us, that we would sort of get a hoard of clothes and stash them away in a secret area, and when your strong sense of guilt would sort of kick in, and then you'd sort of purge all the clothes and throw them out, and not really overly concerned about the cost, because there was this strong sense of guilt. And it just kept on getting stronger as throughout my life. And it was one of those things that, when my partner found out, there was a real strong sense of grit the teeth, I can overcome this. I don't need to go and seek help. I'm strong enough mentally to be able to overcome it. But history proved that it wasn't the case. And that's where, more or less those through the 80s and into the 90s, and it just got stronger and stronger. And I found that, my wife had sort of suggested I go and seek counselling, and that was when the gritting of the teeth got stronger, and no, I can really overcome this. And I sort of metaphorically shake my head and grip my arms, and then it wasn't until really we'd lost our business at the end of the 90s, and circumstances found us interstate, and that I first thought, well, I've got to deal with it, and went and sought some counselling.
I never sought any counselling. When I dressed in home after I told my partner in 99, quietly, when there was just the 2 of us, when my son was out. It was kept very low key, and it got stronger and stronger. Then I found out about Seahorse, and then I actually turned up there in 2004. It was still kept very much quiet. though I would go to the meetings once a month, that was about it, really. I couldn't do much more than that. I used to arrange my son to be at my parents' or at a friend's place or a camp, have someone over, and we'd normally reciprocate the week after if one of his friends. And that way, so I could still do it, but it had to be done very discreetly, very quietly. Go there, come back, get changed, that's it. And it remained like that for quite a few years, up until basically leading towards my transition. It was one of no one needed to know. So my partner at the time knew, and her sister and brother-in-law knew. No one else knew. My son didn't know until I was about to transition and told him. It was one where the guilt factor for me, when I met others, kind of slowly subsided. And it was more of, it's an adventure and something I've always wanted to do. And it's like, why did I not do this earlier? But for me, it was very much one of, I had to be very careful, very meticulous in who I said, what I said to anyone, had to be very careful everything I did. But yet there was no intention of me seeing anyone getting help. It was just a case of I was just trying to live my life.